Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Madden. This is Revolutionary Voices. We're so excited. This is, of course, the fourth grade cross-curricular project, which I'm guessing you've heard about at home by now, because it's involved artwork and writing, and it involves so many teachers and so much hard work to get to this point. But it's a really, I think, a moving and exciting project. And as a parent now, I have a 3-year-old, and I feel like we have had no moments like this, but any moment of like, here you are, these kids are going to do this awesome thing. So I just encourage you to be present and enjoy, because it's a really great thing they're all doing. So without further ado, this is 4A Revolutionary Voices 2025.
Whistle, and believe me, there is something charming in the sound. I wrote this about my experience in the French and Indian War. Hello, I'm George Washington. I was born in 1732 in Virginia. When I was 20, I became a major in the Virginia militia. Then I was elected to the House of Burgesses. During the Revolution, I was fighting battles in New Jersey, New York, and South Carolina. Finally, after the war was over, I became the first president of the United States. I didn't win every battle. In fact, I had a pretty bad losing streak. Right before my losing streak, I had an epic battle in Trenton, New Jersey. The year was 1776. It was Christmas night. Instead of a blazing fireplace and holiday music, my soldiers and I were cramped together on a cold, silent boat. We were dodging icebergs when I heard a loud crack. I looked down in horror as water began to fill the boat. My men shouted in panic. We were close enough to shore, so I ordered them to swim. Bad idea. The water was so cold, all you could hear was teeth chattering like crabs snapping their claws. We arrived at Trenton. My arms burned hot and cold from the exhausting and long swim. We crept quietly into the heart of Trenton and prepared to ambush the Hessians, allies of the British Army. Down with the king! The booms of our cannons broke the silence. I ordered my men to fire and to keep on firing. We could almost taste victory. 20 patriots, armed with rifles, stormed into the Hessian camps and began to shoot. One Hessian soldier grabbed a dagger and chopped down one of my men. My heart thudded wildly in my chest. I ordered our injured to take refuge in a hidden cave. Our sneak attack caught the Hessian troops by surprise. We had to keep fighting. The Hessians knew they'd been defeated by the Continental Army. Finally, when the battle was over, I asked Captain Alexander Hamilton how many men had surrendered. More than 1,000, he said. I surveyed the ruined camps and declared that we had won the Battle of Trenton. We all cheered and took some rest. There were many more battles to fight. I could not wait to get back home and see Martha. Down with the king!
Sorry, I didn't see you there. I was in the middle of writing my new poem, America. Let me introduce myself. I am Phyllis Wheatley. I was born in Gambia in Western Africa. My mother died 7 days after I was born. I was kidnapped in the middle of the night and taken aboard a ship. The conditions on the ship were gloomy and dark. It felt like a pitch-black prison. I had no idea where I was going, but eventually I ended up in Boston Harbor. In Boston, I was sold into slavery to the Wheatley family. Susanna Wheatley took me in as her own. Even though white people were not allowed to teach enslaved people how to read or write, I still learned how to do both of these things. Susanna put a book in front of me, and I was determined to reach the end. Soon after, I found my love for writing poems through the book Susanna gave to me. One of my most notable poems was about George Washington, titled His Excellency General Washington. Proceed, great chief, with virtue on thy side. Every thy action let the godness guide. A crown, a mansion, a throne that shines, with gold unfading, Washington, be thine! And actually, I got a chance to meet him. He was delightful and said he rather enjoyed my writing. And said that I should keep up with my beautiful poems. I continued to write more published poems and became even more famous. I proved in court that I was a true poet and no one helped me write them. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning more about me and my life story. I'll leave you with a few words from one of my poems. Adieu, New England's smiling meads. Adieu, thy flowery plain. I leave thy opening charm, O spring, and tempt the roaring main. Farewell, fellow patriots, and long live American poetry!
Raise your hand if you've heard of George Washington. Thomas Jefferson? John Adams. You might have noticed I named only men. Boo! Did you know women played a huge role in the Revolutionary War too? For example, women like me, Anna Strong, 100% not a man. I played an important role in the Culper Spy, providing crucial information that George Washington needed to know to defeat the British Army. In my family, we're all proud patriots, except for some cousins who unfortunately consider themselves loyal subjects of His high and honorable and noble King George the Best. If you've heard of Benedict Arnold, I want you to say boo. Exactly. Many patriots considered him a hero, but then I attended a party thrown by loyalists. My attention was piqued when Benedict Arnold's name was mentioned. I'm not a tattletale, but it turns out Benedict Arnold was betraying us to King George. I needed to make sure this news was delivered immediately to George Washington. My hands clenched as everybody discussed General Arnold's plan of betrayal.
I excused myself and left the party early. Then I quickly sent the information to my friend, who sent it to his brother, who then sent it off to George Washington. A few days later, news broke out that General Arnold was caught for corresponding with the British Army and planning to surrender to the British. Everyone realized he was a traitor. The war would not have been won by the Patriots if I had not uncovered this crucial piece of information. I hope you learn more about me and my service to the Revolutionary War. Long live American independence!
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sybil Luddington. I am 16 years old and the oldest of 8 brothers and sisters. I worked really hard with helping my mom with all the younger children. I usually helped with spinning, knitting, weaving, and sewing. I loved to ride horses. I was so good at it. My horse's name was Star. She was big and had white spots. On the night of April 26, 1777, in Paterson, New York, a messenger told our family that British soldiers were attacking the town of Danbury, Connecticut, and someone needed to tell the American soldiers to protect the town. Star and I were ready to go. Star and I wanted to ride through the night. I wanted to warn the town that war was coming. I can ride as well as anyone, I thought to myself. I was so confident I felt like I can do anything, but my mom didn't want me to go because it was too dangerous. My father couldn't go because he had to give his soldiers orders, and the messenger couldn't go because he was too cold and tired from his last journey, so I went. On the way to Danbury, I could already see the fire from 20 miles away. When I got there, I didn't have to knock on every single door because everyone heard my shouts as I rode through the town. When I finally got home after all this riding, my father gave me a big hug and a bunch of soldiers welcomed me back home. My story changed the whole Revolutionary War. Thanks to me, the town was saved and the Patriots could continue their fight. Farewell, everyone. I must now go. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Hello there. As you might know, I, Thomas Jefferson, wrote the Declaration of Independence. I was born on April 13, 1743, in Albemarle Country, Virginia. As a child, I loved to read. At age 5, I was sent to boarding school to study Latin, Greek, and French. I went to College of William and Mary and studied science, mathematics, literature, history, and more. In 1772, I married Martha Real Skelton, and at age 27, I began building my home, Monticello. In case you didn't know, Monticello means little mountain in Italian. Before I wrote the Declaration of Independence, I had other things to deal with. Like, in 1669, I was a member of the House of Burgesses. I also belonged to a group called the Virginia Committee of Correspondence, who worked together to convince Americans to oppose British rule. In 1776, I was elected to travel to Philadelphia as a delegate of the Continental Congress. The members of the committee decided that I should write the Declaration. I refused and told them John Adams should write it. But he rejected the offer and I was the only one who could write it. It took me about 2 weeks to write the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. Major ideas of the Declaration included liberty, justice, and equality. After the war in 1784, I was named the Minister of France. We often discussed politics and philosophy. In 1789, President George Washington asked me to be his Secretary of the State. Leaders who agreed with my politics became known as Democratic Republicans. In 1793, I finally retired and returned to Monticello to study nature and geography. However, when Washington decided to leave office, I was elected to be vice president alongside President Adams. Soon after Adams retired, I was elected the third president of the United States. The words of the Declaration of Independence live on in American history, and it has become one of the most important historical documents. I take great pride in publishing the Declaration of Independence and helping guide America to liberty. Farewell.
as the redcoats fired against me. There was smoke in the air, echoes of gunshots all around me, men falling to the ground out of exhaustion. And I, the lone woman on the battlefield, stood behind my cannon and fired. Good morning, fellow patriots. I'm Mary Ludwig Hayes, but you may know me as Molly Pitcher. I grew up in the 1760s, where the British placed many taxes on us colonists. In 1775, when I was about 20 years old, I worked for Army General William Irvine. At that time, I met another man named William, and we got married. I joined him in the Revolutionary War. You may be wondering where I got my nickname. Let me tell you about it. It was the Battle of Monmouth, I was gathered with other women near the battlefield. It was a hot day, and the battle raged on, the longest battle of the Revolution. As I watched men on the battlefield, I saw soldiers falling to the ground, fainting from the intense heat. I knew I had to do something. So I ran across the dangerous battlefield to fill a pitcher at the stream and hydrate the fallen men. I kept running back and forth from the stream to the field, filling my pitcher with water and giving it to the soldiers. All of a sudden, I noticed that my husband had fainted. He was passed out on the ground, and no one was able to man his cannon. So I, as his wife, ran over to the cannon and fired it at the British. I loaded the gunpowder, the firing materials, and the shot. People around me were thinking, she will make her husband proud, but she will not last. Move the cannon when she is done. But I kept firing the cannon. She never tires, I heard people say. And then, Molly, the cannonball nearly killed you. Shall we pull back? I replied, never. That day, I wanted to show that women are strong, independent, and brave. Who says a man must fire a cannon? That day, I saved so many fallen men with my pitcher, and even more by firing with a cannon. Now you know why we won the Battle of Monmouth and how I got my nickname, Molly Pitcher. Farewell, Patriots.
Guess who survived being captured by the British and heroically saved a dear friend? Me, 'tis I, James Fortin. I was born on September 2nd, 1766, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the largest city in the American colonies. I was born a free person of African origin because my parents were free. My father was a sailmaker and died when I was 7. He often took me to work with him. When I turned 14, I decided to fight for America's freedom and independence in the Revolutionary War. I was on a small American warship called the Royal Louis. I carried gunpowder to the cannons. One day, the crew members, captain, and I saw a large British ship. We were captured, and I was worried about becoming enslaved. I worked day and night. I held tightly to my lucky marbles until one day the captain's son came to me and asked me about my marbles. He asked me if I could play with them, and I said yes. We played with them for a while. Captain Beasley praised the friendship that I had with his son and requested me to come to Great Britain with him. I, James Fortin, turned down the offer. Why? Because I wanted to remain in America and fight for independence. My decision saved me from being enslaved, but my future was still uncertain. After Captain Beasley left, I was treated as a prisoner of war and sent to a prisoner ship called the Jersey. My dear friend David, who was also a prisoner on the ship, became ill and needed my help to survive. I was able to get him food, although it was not fresh. I also came up with a secret plan to get David off the ship to home. I successfully smuggled him off the ship. A few months later, I was freed and had to return to Philadelphia via New York on foot. After, I met my family and got settled back home. I joined the Free African Society and became a leader in the abolitionist movement. Thank you for joining me in this historic journey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Benjamin Franklin. Yes, the Benjamin Franklin. Skilled printer, great inventor, and brilliant statesman. Allow me to share a glimpse into my journey with you. I was born on January 17, 1706, on Mill Street in Boston. I was
was the 15th of my father's 17 children, and I was one of the busiest in my household. My family lived only a few blocks from the Boston Harbor. The Atlantic Ocean made my street smell like sea salt. Later, I moved to New York in hopes of finding a job, but I couldn't find one. Then, I moved to Pennsylvania with only $1 in my pocket. When I got to Pennsylvania, I worked at a printing shop. Back in Boston, my brother was a printer too. I loved to read and write, and one day I had an idea. I was going to write my very own newspaper. My brother didn't want me to outshine him because I was younger than him, but I continued to write and forge my own path. I made a plan that every night I would write a letter and sign them Miss Silence Dogood, so no one would know I was the writer behind these letters. Soon enough, my letters were published in the New England Courant. Readers loved to read Dogood letters. Some of the letters were about life in Boston, while others poked fun at the British government. I wrote about topics that ranged from rights and freedom to what it means to be a good friend. In one of my most famous letters I wrote, whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech, a thing terrible to public traitors. This letter emphasized a core belief of mine that freedom of speech was one of the most important things in free society. When my brother found out about the letters and who wrote them, he was furious with me. We argued a lot, but I continued writing. When I was 23, I published my very own newspaper. It was called the Pennsylvania Gazette. Over time, it became the most popular newspaper in colonial America. With the belief in the incredible power that words hold, my newspaper flourished, and we spread the ideas of the revolution far and wide. Thank you for listening. Farewell, Patriots. Good morning, fellow patriots. Today I stand before you in a dress, but for most of my time fighting in the Revolutionary War, I was dressed as a man. My name is Deborah Sampson. I was born around 1760. My family life was not easy. I had 4 other siblings. My father died in a shipwreck, and my mother was too sick to take care of us. Eventually, my mother had to give us away, and I ended up with the Thomas family and worked as a maid for 10 years. After I finished my service with the Thomas family, I had this big idea of joining the Army. I've been looking for an adventure like this, I thought to myself, but there was one big problem. I was a woman. At this time, the Continental Army did not allow women to enlist, but did I give up? Nope. I made my own men's clothes and prepared to join the Army. I practiced talking, sitting, standing, running, walking like a man. Here, let me show you. I introduced myself as Robert Shirtliff and signed on for 3 years in the Army. My goals were to fight the Patriots with the war and to hide the fact that I was a woman from all the other soldiers. I fought many battles. One day I was sent on an important mission in Philadelphia. A fever was spreading and I caught it. I was so sick that I fainted and was sent to the hospital. When I woke up, the nurse ran to get the doctor. He examined me and discovered my secret. When I felt better, he asked me to bring a letter to General Patterson. The letter revealed that I was in fact a woman. I overcame many challenges in order to fight for independence and proved my courage and commitment. Long live the woman fighters!
You've heard of great battles and famous generals, of muskets firing and cannons roaring, but let me tell you a different kind of battle, the one fought with wits, courage, and secrecy. My name is James Armistead, though some call me Lafayette, after the great French general I served. And yes, I am a spy, a double agent to be precise. I was born into slavery and owned by William Armistead. In the summer of 1781, I was with Mr. Armistead in Virginia, supplying General Lafayette's troops. But Lafayette needed more than supplies, so Mr. Armistead allowed me to join as a servant or a spy. General Lafayette gave me a dangerous job. He needed someone to join the British camp, earn their trust, and send them false information while giving him the real truth. That someone was me. At first, it was hard to get them to trust me, but over time, the British officers believed I was on their side. They told me their plans, like where their troops would go, how they got supplies, and their strategies, thinking I was their friend. Little did they know that every piece of information they gave me made its way back to General Lafayette and the Continental Army. I carried messages across enemy lines, sometimes disguised as simple notes or maps, hidden where no one would think to look. Each journey was a gamble. Being a double agent was risky. My cover could be blown and I could lose my life at any moment. The most important moment came when I found out General Cornwallis's plans at Yorktown. The British thought their position was too strong to be defeated, but I knew that wasn't true. I sent all the details to Lafayette and he gave them to General Washington. With that information, our army surrounded Cornwallis and stopped him from escaping. The victory at Yorktown was partly because of the secrets I shared. When the Revolutionary War ended in 1783, I did not get the freedom I was promised. Only black soldiers in the army were granted freedom, not spies like me. When General Lafayette found out about this, he was outraged. He wrote a certificate in his own words declaring I should be free. 2 years later, the Virginia legislature made me a free man. In tribute to what Lafayette did for me, I took the last name Lafayette. So remember this, freedom is not won just on the battlefield, but in the quiet acts of courage, in the unseen sacrifices, and in the belief that every person, no matter who they are, can change the course of history. That is my story, and I'm proud to tell it. Farewell, citizens. Long live the revolution!
That means hello, in my native language. You probably don't know who I am, so let me introduce myself. My name is Chief Thananija. You may also know me as Joseph Grant. Thananija means he who places two bets. I was born in Ohio in 1742. My parents' English names are Margaret and Peter. My mom was a member of the Mohawk Nation, and I was born to her clan. Some say I was the son of Sir William Johnson, but that has never been proven true. My people are the Mohawks. The same goes for my mom and my dad. I was a skilled military leader and negotiator. My skills were certainly put to the test during the American Revolution. I begged the Haudenosaunee to help the British when war broke out. As military commander and leader, it was my job to make sure the Haudenosaunee and Mohawk side with the British. They could help protect our land, I explained. The Six Nations cannot decide what to do in this cause of a division. The colonists treated us badly. They stole our land and broke their promises. The king and his men, on the other hand, treated us fairly and promised to protect and restore our land. I believed I could no longer stand by and not take action. I got my reputation as a feared military leader by leading many raids against the colonists, including the raid of Cherry Valley. Leading raids wasn't the only thing I did to earn my title. I also led some native groups, including my own, the Mohawks, in the Battle of Orskney during the Revolutionary War. Since I was convinced that the British would help protect their land and promote the rights of Native Americans, I constantly helped them both on and off the battlefield. Once, I even stopped Chief Red Jacket's attempt to convince other Native groups to make peace with the colonists. 5 years later, on September 3rd, 1783, the revolution ended. Even after the war had ended, I kept fighting for Native people's rights. On November 24th, 1807, I passed away. Even though I was gone, I knew my story never would be. Farewell, my friends. I'll leave you with these parting words. Remember the Native people. Their ways of life have changed life today.
My historical figure did not want to go to school when he was a kid. Who here can relate? But did you know he helped write the Declaration of Independence anyway? Turns out he can accomplish a lot when you don't go to school. If you don't know who I am yet, let me just say, I'm offended. Why, I'm John Adams, of course. I was born in 1773 and raised on a farm in Braintree, Massachusetts. I live there with my adorable wife, Abigail Adams, and my two sweet kids, John Quincy Adams and Nabby Adams. In 1775, I met Thomas Jefferson in Philadelphia at the Second Continental Congress. He wrote to James Madison about me saying, "He is vain, iterable, and a bad calculator of motives which govern men." Wow! But he continued, "He is so amiable that I pronounce you will love him if you ever become acquainted with him." Jefferson and I became great friends and developed deep respect for each other. In 1776, I was asked to join a committee with Jefferson to help write a draft for the Declaration of Independence. I wanted laws and rights to be enforced. I was so overjoyed they asked me to help, even though I felt like I was a really bad writer. So I knew it was going to take a lot of hard work and effort on my part. I remember feeling nervous about helping write the Declaration of Independence. This had to go well because we needed Congress's approval. In my mind, I could hear scratching on the paper as Jefferson wrote. When he was done, Benjamin and I made a few adjustments. Overall, I was impressed with it. I admitted to Jefferson he could write 10 times better than I can. Then, the day arrived to vote for the Declaration of Independence. I thought saying a few words could be nice, but I hadn't really prepared a speech. So, I gave a short speech and only spoke for 2 hours. Jefferson said I convinced the delegates. Finally, on July 2nd, 1776, Congress voted to declare independence. 2 days later, it was ratified. I, John Adams, helped write and pass the Declaration of Independence. Huzzah for America's most cherished symbol of our liberty.
Abigail Adams. Yes, the Abigail Adams. I was inspired by the Declaration of Independence and the ideals of the American Revolution. I was born on October 11th, 1744 in Weymouth, Massachusetts. In 1764, I married my lovely husband, John Adams. We had 2 children, John Quincy Adams and Nabby Adams. Our son, John Quincy Adams, became President of the United States. He took after my dearest John. We're so proud of him. Whilst the Revolution was fought across the colonies, I was outside of Boston tending to our home in Braintree. John was in Philadelphia. During our time apart, we sent multiple letters to each other. While so many of our letters are memorable, most often when people think of me, they think of this one letter. Do you have any guesses? It's my Remember the Ladies letter. When writing this letter in 1776, I wasn't asking for the right to vote. I was simply asking for fairer laws. I was hoping that my husband John would consider women when making laws for a new country. In my letter, I said, "In the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could." While John dismissed my request, my words and ideas became history. Throughout my life, I never gave up in the cause of fighting for women's rights. Well, I better stop blabbering all about me. I know you don't have all day to hear only about me. You might want to hear from some other people too. I better go now. Fare thee well and good day.
Bonjour. My name is Marie Joseph Paul Yves Roche Gilbert du Monterre de Lafayette, but you can call me Gilbert. I'm Marquis de Lafayette and most famous for helping the Americans win the Revolutionary War. I was born on September 6, 1757 in France. Unfortunately, my mother, father, and uncle died when I was very young. My father was killed in the Battle of Minden in 1759 at the hands of the British Army. I swore to take revenge on Great Britain. While living in Paris, I became an officer cadet in the Black Musketeers when I was 14 years old. Later, I married my wife Adrienne. I joined an association called the Freemasons. They believed that freedom and independence were honorable causes. Did you know George Washington and Benjamin Franklin were also Freemasons? I liked the idea I was in a brotherhood with patriots in America. Since I was 8 years old, I longed for glory. I joined the Revolutionary War on the battlefield. My hands were shaking, but I wanted victory. Here's my most famous battle. Lord Cornwallis and the British Army had been weakened thanks to the Continental Army. They were in Virginia recovering and awaiting supplies. I devised a plan to completely defeat the British once and for all. The British were on the Yorktown Peninsula. I secured the French naval ships to make a blockade around them, preventing the British from receiving help. My plan worked. On October 19, 1781, the British surrendered, ending the Revolutionary War. After the war, I became a prominent figure during the French Revolution. However, I was imprisoned. It was a very dark time in my life. I wanted to die in Paris, but I feared that such an example of ingratitude would only discourage future promoters of liberty. I was not forgotten by Americans. Many, including George Washington, tried to negotiate my release from prison. They wanted to bring the world's attention to my situation. Eventually, I was freed. My friend Napoleon Bonaparte also helped to secure my release. Remember me as the Frenchman who risked it all for American independence. Au revoir.
Shh, quiet down. You can't wake my children. They don't know I'm writing poems.
It's secret. In case we haven't met yet, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Mercy Otis Warren. I was born in Barnstable, Massachusetts in September 1728. I have 5 children: Winslow, Henry, George, Charles, and James Warren. And yes, my son James Warren is indeed named after my husband, James Warren. Growing up, my house was always filled with people. I had 6 brothers and sisters. Yes, that many. My father always believed that women should receive an education and learn alongside men. He believed education was not a privilege, but a right. In my life, I wanted to prove men wrong, so I decided to channel my energy into writing poems. My most famous poem was The Squabble of the Sea Nymphs. Stress was upon me as I started to write this poem, but I kept going. The first word was down, then an entire line, then a whole stanza. I couldn't stop the words from flowing. You must know, this poem was an important piece of history because it was based on the events that became known as the Boston Tea Party. Scholars and historians have analyzed and picked apart my poems for ages. Some say the squabble represents different groups of people during the Revolution and how this order can lead to transformation and change. Others say that lines from my poems celebrate brave people taking a stand and fighting back against the bully King George. I'll let you be the judge. Allow me to read a few lines to you. The fair of Silesia, victory, victory sings, in spite of heroes, demigods, or kings. She bids to defiance the servile train, the sycophants of George's reign. As soon as I read these lines out loud, I knew my poem was ready for the world. It was so good that it made it into the newspaper. Even more thrilling was watching people read it. I heard people crumpling the newspaper. However, I saw people smiling. That's when I knew I proved men wrong. Long live the women of the Revolution!
I need to get out of slavery. I am Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman. I was born enslaved, which sadly means my birth date is unknown. My enslavers were the Ashleys who lived in the Berkshires. I have a daughter named Lizzie who is my entire world. She keeps me positive and hopeful for the future. This is the day I realized I needed to get out of slavery. My daughter Lizzie was baking bread using scraps of leftover dough in the kitchen. Mrs. Ashley screamed at her for stealing food. Lizzie was so scared, even though she had done nothing wrong. Seeing this, I felt so upset and powerless. I wanted to protect my daughter. I worried about what her life would be like in the future if things continue this way. I said to Lizzie, "Look at the mountains out there. Rain and wind, ice and snow. Try to wear it down. But there it stands, strong and rugged, just like us." Lizzie and I would continue to be strong and endure these hardships, but still, we needed to get out of this place. One day, I overheard Mr. Cedric, a lawyer, talking to Mr. Ashley. He said the king wanted to take away our rights and enslave us. He announced, "Mankind in the state of nature are equal, free, and independent. The great end of society is to secure those rights wherewith God and nature have made us free." The next day, I went to see Mr. Cedric because I believed he could help me win my freedom. The Massachusetts Constitution was the new law of the land, and we argued in court that now made slavery illegal. The result was me and my daughter were now free. Our case eventually led to the abolition of slavery throughout Massachusetts. Thank you for listening to my speech. Freedom for all!
Everyone's so mean to me! Sure, I stirred up a little trouble after the French and Indian War. I didn't give Americans their freedom. They demanded, but I'm the king. I miss the old days when everyone would say, "Woo, King George, we love you!" Or, "King George, you're the best!" What's that? You're all patriots. Never mind. As you probably know, I'm King George. You heard a lot of interesting stories this morning. Now you get to hear my side. When I was 12 years old, my father and grandfather died suddenly, which meant I was next in line for the throne. Being only 12, I needed to prepare to take the role of king. With the help of my advisor, Lord Bute, at age 22, I was crowned King George III. After that, for a few years, it was peaceful, until little did I know, my whole life was about to change. In 1764, I began taxing the colonies more. My very first task was the Sugar Act. I thought I should increase taxes on the colonists to pay for their protection and safety. After that, I declared the Stamp Act. That tax was an official seal attached to all legal documents, newspapers, Alimaxes, and plain cards. Pretty simple, right? For the years, I imposed more and more taxes. But then one day, all I heard about was the tea tax. Colonists weren't very happy about this and started calling it the beverage of traitors. Ugh. In other words, they refused to drink the tea. Guess what happened next? They dumped the tea into the Boston Harbor and called it a tea party. Then the Revolutionary War. After several years of fighting, I wanted it to end. Many people believe I was forced to give up the colonies, but no, it was my decision. As a very religious man, I do not support bloodshed. Well, I'm sorry, but I believe I'm out of time. Do me a favor and tell my great story to everyone you know, okay? Remember, God bless the king. Not one. Fine. God bless America.